we had to ask a couple questions, and they were, okay, well, what am I good at? What do I hate doing? And what do you guys think I'm good at? Right. And so then we kind of came up with the different areas.
Are you about to start a podcast or producing a podcast and tired of doing the editing yourself? We have produced over 1,000 daily shows, and the production team that I've created, they're now available to produce shows for you as well. We can do as little or as much as you need, from finding and communicating with guests, preparing introductions, to editing the audio and video. You will sound better, have a more professional presence, and be able to spend your time doing other valuable tasks on your business. Let me know you're interested by emailing me directly at whitney@lifebridgecapital.com. After 21 years in the military, and he knew that it was about time to leave that job, right? And they had to figure out a way to supplement their income. Well, Eli and his wife did just that, and they jumped into real estate in a big way. He found two partners, and they've grown to nearly 1,000 units or more now. And he's going to dive in today to, what happens at 800 to 1,000 units, right? The team changes, right? The things that, the top people are doing changes. You have to be willing to maybe pull back at times to focus on the internal structure, internal processes, because they have to grow, right? If you want to grow and achieve those big goals, you have to have the structure to do that, right? And the foundation to do that. And Eli is going to go through just that today. And he also is going to ask you two questions that towards the end of the show that I felt like were worth the whole show. I mean, it was like, okay, that is something we need to think about right there. So yeah, 21 years, retired veteran. He and his partners own and operate 815 units in Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Kansas. They'll be at 1,000 units after they close a deal in Texas soon. He loves his family, economics, investing, and anything related to personal growth. I know you're going to learn a lot from Eli today. Eli, welcome to the show. First, I want to say thank you for your service. Honored to have our men and women who have served on the show as well. And now they're serving, doing other things, right? And in big ways and making big ripples in our industry and making things happen. And oftentimes I find, man, that experience was so crucial in helping them, to go be successful in business as well. I know it helped me in a big way, but welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, man. You're welcome, by the way. Really, I love to serve. So you're very welcome. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, Eli's a retired veteran, 21 years in the Air Force. I just want to thank him for his service. But I want to jump in. You're now successful, very successful in real estate and own nearly 1,000 units or over. Congratulations on that, by the way. Tell us a little bit about your real estate journey, though, in the syndication business. And we all kind of take different paths sometimes to get there. And so What was that like for you? And then let's jump into some ways that you're even expanding your business now, what that looks like, because like you and I've talked about it, it's not talked about often. A lot of people talk about getting to that first deal or two, but man, things, you have to learn, have different skill sets. Once you get to 100, 1,000 units, different things start to happen, more team members you're having to manage, all those things, right? All right. So give us a little, though, about your backstory. I know you're Air Force and doing real estate at the same time. What did that look like? And shed some light there.
You have to let them unpack there, but yeah, for sure. So my name is Eli. I'm a retired military veteran. I spent 21 years in the military, 7 years in the Army. So I was a paratrooper for 7 years. Got out, went to school for about 2 years, and I joined the Air Force, where I finished my degree. And then about 15 years into my career, my wife and I kind of realized we needed extra income to replace our current income, because we were coming up on my retirement. And so we loved real estate. So we started just to kind of buy houses. And we got to a couple and did pretty good with those. But we kind of realized at that pace, we wouldn't be able to hit our goal. I don't remember what the goal back then was. It's like only like 40 houses or something like that, or 60 houses. So we started kind of networking. I remember driving around town one day and I saw an apartment complex and I was like, man, who buys those things? Like that'd be way more efficient to own, something like that than to own 100 houses across town. I think back then my goal was to buy like 20 units. Or something like that. So we started kind of networking, kind of learning the space, the industry. I joined a mentorship group about 2018. And that year I picked up 300 units. It was like 2 deals in Atlanta. And then those kind of went full cycle. We held those for about 2.5, almost 3 years and sold them. In that same group, I met my two partners and about 2 or 3 years ago. And then we formed Elis Multifamily. And now we have 800 units across 3 states. We're under contract now on a deal in Texas. And so once we close on that one, at the end of summer, we'll be just north of 1,000. So it's been a long, great journey so far. But yeah, for sure, we are growing. And at the end of last year, in the beginning of this year, we kind of hit a space where we're like, okay, we're at 800 units, about to be 1,000. I'm like, if we're running around right now with our heads being like our heads are cut off, how are we going to look at, 2,000 units or 5,000 units? And so we had to really kind of pull back and evaluate, okay, well, up until now, we've been buying apartments, right? And so that's one thing, but growing and scaling a business is completely different. So we really had to kind of pull back and evaluate, okay, so what's our roles? How do we grow? What's next? And that kind of thing. That's kind of where we are now as a business.
Yeah. So, you talk about, you had to pull back and evaluate what are our roles? What are each of us? What are we doing? What are we responsible for ultimately? Right. That's not what we usually want to do. Right. It's usually okay, we're going to double our unit count this year. We're going to double our assets under management. And that's great. But man, it can start to fall apart, right? If you don't start growing the internal systems at the same time. And so let's jump right into that. I'd love to, us think through that a little bit, and you help us to see, okay, when did this start to happen? Was it a unit count? Was it a team member count? What was it that started to help you and your partners say, okay, wait a minute, we got to pull back a little bit. We got to focus on this thing over here a bit. So when we do grow, like we're hoping, it doesn't just fall in on us, right?
Yeah, for sure. It wasn't I don't know if there's really a industry standard for like unit count I'm sure. So it's like 3 of us. And so we've been operating now for about 2 or 3 years, doing really well with our deals. But then we kind of realized, I think end of last year and the beginning of this year, we kind of realized we weren't as efficient as we could be. Our roles weren't super defined, right? Like, we had things that we enjoyed doing that we did very well, but we all kind of did like the same thing. And, like I would do acquisitions, and so would Chris, or somebody would be doing it, like Nate would do asset management, so would I, or something like that. And so there was a lot of overlap. And then so we said, okay, guys, like we need to get more organized. We need to, start buying software, I think it was whenever we did our 2022 year annual planning, we kind of sat back and said, okay, guys, as a company, this is where we are. This is where we want to go. So how do we get there? And so we kind of started talking to other people. We talked to you. We called you and talked to you for a little bit about how you grew your business. We talked to several other people who were several years ahead of us. We said, okay, 5, 7, 10 years ago, when you were in our place, what did you do next? Right? Like, because we kind of realized that a lot of us, the 3 of us were, even though I had quit the military, I was slowly getting myself into another job. And so I was still in the weeds. I was still doing a lot of asset management, and we all were, right? We still hunting down properties. And so I'm like, okay, guys, if we hit 2, 5, 10,000 units and we're still in the weeds and we're not working on the business, we're going to get burned out, And so we started just talking, so we kind of figured out that in no certain order, people typically who grow the most in this space, they hire on marketing, they hire on asset management, and some kind of construction piece. And I think for all the listeners out there, you have to kind of figure out, okay, well, maybe I'm not at that phase yet, but eventually I'll get there. So what's the best for our company? For us, we said, okay, well, we're great operators. We can go out and find deals. That's fine. But no one really knows us. Like no one really knows our brand. And so it was kind of hard to raise capital. And that was another impetus that kind of pushed us too. So like our first hire was a marketing director. So I said, okay, hey, we're going to go out there and we're going to ramp up our marketing and let people know who we are and what we do, what makes us special and unique and all that. Kind of like, I think that was probably one of the biggest decisions that we made right off bat, was to hire up all the marketing. But come to find out, it's funny. You think you're good with that kind of stuff, but we hired on like this 22-year-old social media guru, and she makes us into like a bunch of boomers just out there on, so for the last like several months, she's brought us into, hey, this is how you need to do a campaign. This is how you need to like ramp up and show people, who you are and like what you're great at.
That's interesting. So how long ago was that you made that hire of this marketing director?
We brought her on right after we had our annual planning meeting. So around like the beginning of this year. And so for the last like several months, she's helped us refocus our marketing brand.
If you're looking back now, I know she's only been there a short time, but would you say that was a wise first hire, or should you have hired somebody else first, or how do you see that? And we all need a marketing director. I'm not, wondering about that, but it's like, are you happy that was the first hire?
Yeah. Because I mean, it's hard to say, like what's the first that you should do, but I'm completely happy because I think for us, we're just like three operating dudes. And so for us, like we're very transactional, and I hate to say it that way, but for us to, go in front of a camera or to shoot videos and to do other things that are like the softer skills of this industry, that's not our nature. Right. And so it's taken us a long time to kind of figure out like, okay, hey, we have to have this other arm. Part of it is, like we don't enjoy doing it because you're just not very good at it yet. Right. So you need to like practice it more. But I think for us, for Atlas at least, it's been a wise decision.
Okay. No, that's incredible. I love hearing, after the fact, right? Do you feel that way now? And marketing is so important. So how did you find this marketing director?
Just through a meetup. We were at like a social event, like a meetup type of event, hanging out. And she kind of walked in, we started talking, had some great synergy. And she wanted to learn multifamily. And we wanted, a marketing director. And so like, hey, I like the way you think. Like, I think she's different in the fact that she can apply her skills to multifamily. And so she's hung out with us a lot. Like she's traveled with us and gone on, different seminars, different, events. And now that she's hung out with us and spent time with us, she understands each one of our personalities and our character. And so that helps her craft marketing plans to push videos out and things like that. So that's super, super helpful. And it's kind of comical because now we show up at events and people are like, hey man, I love your video on TikTok or whatever. I'm like, oh yeah, TikTok. That's right.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. That's right. I'm the same way.
Yeah.
I've never been on TikTok personally. I always thought it was just young people doing some kind of weird dance. I thought I don't have any of those dances. So, anyway, that's incredible. And that you outsourced that you met this person at a meetup, you saw talent in them and, you partnered, ultimately brought them on to help them to grow also. I wanted to back up and ask you about, when you and your partners were determining that, hey, we have to pull back a little bit. I wanted to ask you, how did you all determine, you talked about how you are all kind of transactional doing some of the same stuff, but how did you determine who was responsible for what?
Oh yeah, gotcha. So my other partner, Chris, he's built like several other businesses in the past. And so he kind of understood like the life cycle of business. And so that's really helped out a lot, is having someone who's very business or entrepreneurial driven for one to help us kind of think through problems. But I think for us, when we said, pulled back, we had to ask a couple of questions and they were, okay, well, what am I good at? What do I hate doing? And, like, what do you guys think I'm good at? Right. And so then we kind of came up with the different areas. So we had to kind of do like a white table where we had, we listed out like all the 50,000 things that we do, and then said, okay, of these 100 things that we do, what can only we do the best? Right. And what do I enjoy doing? Because maybe I'm good at it, but I don't enjoy doing it. But maybe Chris or Nathan does. Right. So that was super helpful to kind of define, okay, well, this is my area. I'm going to do this. This is your area. You're going to do that. And this is your area. You're going to do that. I think like our spin on it was, okay, well, even though I said I'm good at this, they also gave me feedback and said, well, you're also good at this, but you're also bad about this. Right. So it was having very good feedback from your partners saying, hey, man, maybe you shouldn't do that because like you're really good at doing, X, Y, Z, but whatever, you aren't good at that. So I see you kind of struggle in this area, even though you like it.
Yeah, that's so helpful. I just think it's helpful to walk through that process with you a little bit. Okay, you made this massive list of all the tasks, and then you all just had a real conversation about what you're really good at, but you accepted feedback from your partners there. I think that's so crucial as well, right? You may think you're really good at something and they're like, I don't know. Right. But then again, they may say, hey, Eli, you didn't mention this thing over here that you do, but we really think you're the best at this, right? Or, it could go both ways, right? Mm-hmm. But, you also talked about what do I really hate doing? And, you all are open about that. And I just think that's crucial. And that's a great conversation, as partners, right? Yeah. When you're getting started. But, okay, then I know there's listeners that ask this. I get asked this often as well. Like, how did you determine titles and really, who has the final say, in a partnership, or how did you all work through those things?
So titles are just, you can make up, whatever you want, really. When we kind of sat through and defined our roles, then we said, okay, this is what Eli will do. This is what Chris will do. And this is what Nate will do, right? Everything else, we're going to hire it out, right? So now we're in a phase where whatever cash we make, a good percentage of it is going back into hiring out like those things that we don't enjoy doing or that take up our time, right? So that way we can focus on the long-term vision of the company. And then I guess just as time's kind of gone on, even though we've done it in the past where we kind of bleed into each other's sectors, we've worked on, like, hey man, we got to communicate. And if I'm working on this, I don't need your permission or your feedback necessarily to make a decision anymore, right? This is my lane. I'm going to attack it and we're going to, I'm going to grow it because this is what I'm good at. You need to focus on this. This is what you're good at, right? That's kind of worked out organically through, the last several months at least. But I think a key component of that is having open communication. We're very big in our company about, hey, we have to be honest with each other. So if you're stepping on my toes, I'm going to tell you. I think I had another point, but that's kind of how.
You hit a great point there, having open communication. And it's not always easy, right? It's not always easy to tell them, hey, to have that hard conversation, right? But it is crucial. Speak to maybe your all's meeting cadence. And do you have a rhythm to that or maybe an agenda that helps you all to be as productive as possible?
So we talk every day about something. So we talk every day, but then every 3 months, we kind of do another follow-up meeting to say, okay, this is where we've been, right? This was the original plan. This is where we're going now. Is this where we want to be, right? So I think as time goes on, it won't be, we won't have like these big meetings every 3 months. It'll turn into 6 months. It'll turn into a year. But, right now we're in such a crazy phase where we're growing and expanding that we're kind of like things change so much that on top of just growing, we're also buying deals, right? I mean, we also have like this one deal under contract. So there's a lot of flux going on. But I think as time kind of goes on, we'll kind of build to quiet down and be able to kind of say, okay, guys, yeah, we're on the right path. We're doing fine. We have like these new hires. They're trained. They're doing things correctly and all that.
What's your next hurdle or your next plan to scale? Or, what are you all working on now internally?
So we're working on asset management. And that's been a big deal for us because for so long, and I say so long, but 3 or 4 years I've been buying this. I've been like in the weeds, right? Like me, Chris, and Nathan have been in the weeds on our properties. And so for us just to, we don't want to willy-nilly just hire an asset manager, right? And then give them like, $50 million worth of assets and just say, okay, good luck with it. We're going to go be over here working on the big vision of the company. So we have to, we've had to put a lot of time, a lot of effort into finding like the right candidate, right? Whether or not that's hiring from the outside or that's hiring under Atlas, right? Because that's another big decision. Okay, well, do we want to go hire a third party, someone who's more experienced, or do we want to hire somebody experienced or not, right? And then put them under Atlas and have them come under our brand and then train them how we do things, right? So that's been kind of a big thought process for us because the operations is like the lifeblood of everything you do. And, to have a good asset manager is, key to what we do here.
It's crucial, no doubt about it. So let me clarify. You all did decide to hire somebody in-house or bring somebody in as opposed to a third party?
Yeah, we have. Yeah, we're going to hire. We brought in someone to work under us. Yeah, to in-house. I think talking with other people, they kind of vertically integrate the ones who grow the biggest. And so we're like, okay, yeah, we should do that. Try to vertically integrate. That way we have, like marketing, asset management, construction, all under Atlas.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. And to hear you think through that a little bit or how you all thought through, being vertically integrated. I've seen groups go both ways. And like you said, it does seem like some that have grown the largest or the fastest, it's like you're bringing those skills in-house, right? And you're growing your team so you can, it's just having that pulse, on what's happening is different when they are part of the team versus third party almost in every scenario that I can think of, And so, switching gears a little bit, when you're looking at these projects or maybe considering the current climate, market climate, economic climate, how are you all preparing for a downturn? Or, has what you are doing changed or buying, selling, or how you're underwriting, anything like that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Like big time. But it's funny because the same thing happened to us during COVID too, right? So like we bought like our first couple of deals were bought in the middle of like right at the beginning of March of 2020. And so the market and the economy was in flux back then too. So lending was just wild and all that. So we don't necessarily appreciate and, like these kind of climates, but we do very well in them. And so for this one in particular, we've had to be way more conservative on our underwriting as opposed to, not that we weren't before, but like say, for instance, the deal that we got, the one here in Texas that we're about to close on, that one was, instead of doing a bridge debt, we did like long-term Fannie fixed debt. Instead of doing like, 75 to 80% leverage at low interest rates, we had to underwrite for 60% leverage at like higher interest rates. And so even though we came in on the bid, like over like 1.4 million under what they were asking. We said, hey, we have, I think everyone else is still underwriting like it was like, 3 or 4 months ago with way different lending terms. Ours, like we're coming way under, but we can close. It'll be long-term fixed Fannie debt. And we're going to, we can still make this happen. So we got that deal, right? I think it's harder and it takes more time and more effort. And you have to probably kind of adjust with the times. You should always be out there finding deals and hunting things down.
No doubt about it. I think no matter where you're at in the cycle, you should still be looking at deals. And even if you're not able to buy one, you're still learning a lot, right? Keeping a pulse on what's happening. And no, I appreciate just the insight into that, how you're looking at the market right now. And then what's your best source for meeting new investors right now?
So I do a lot of in-person. So probably 3 things, like I'm always out at meetups, at different seminars. So I'm always out because I think, so I'm looking old fashioned, right? Still old fashioned. Social media is important for sure. It's, like where everything's going, but I still enjoy the handshaking and meeting you face to face. You can't grow probably as big that way, but that's one thing that fits me the best. Number 2 is podcasts. So I do podcasts. We also host a podcast. So that's helped out a lot. And then probably 3, speaking of social media, LinkedIn has really helped, but I've had to take a lot of time and effort to kind of learn the best strategies to kind of put my face out there. Right.
Yeah. How did you learn that best strategy? A lot of people ask me about that.
Talking to people. So I'll watch people who've got like a big engagement. And I'll say, okay, well, how are they structuring like their stuff? Right. Like how are they getting so many followers? Like, what are they doing? Right. There's nothing like YouTube. That's, hey, and then just recently I got this guy's course on how to grow like your LinkedIn, like following. So yeah, I'm not, against buying a course that's like $100, that kind of walk you through how to best structure your content.
You learn 2 or 3 things for even one thing, probably from that. It's worth it,
Oh yeah. Tons. It showed me how out of date I am, at least,
What are some of the most important metrics that you track? And that can be personally or professionally.
Metrics, huh?
Yeah. Like what are some of the most important metrics that you track? Or it could be, did I get up on time every morning? Or it could be how many deals we underwrote, or it could be anything. Or I had this many calories that I ate every day, or this much time, anything that you track that's important to you.
I don't know if this is going to be a metric or not, but this is, I would say, my morning routine. That is key. And so the way I start my day is the way I end my day, right? So I go through the same steps every morning. So it's a routine that I use that I call something that fuels and launches my day. And so for me, I have to get up, I have to exercise, then I'll come back and then I'll read, and then I'll journal, and then I'll listen to a podcast, right? And that puts me like in the right mindset that gets me like fired up and ready just to go in my day. And then after that, I take 90 minutes where I call it a jam session, but I take 90 minutes and I stay focused. And my first hour and a half is just, me, no emails, nothing. It's head down working. And that's my routine in the morning.
Awesome. Yeah. And the next thing I was going to ask you about just habits that have produced the highest return for you. Is there anything else you would add to that? I'm also very big on morning routine, and that maybe that comes a little bit from military. I'm not sure, but anything else you'd add as far as habits that you're disciplined about?
Habits. Yeah. So I'm big on stoicism. So I'm a stoic at heart. Like I love Stoic philosophy. And so their big principle is, don't talk about being a good person, just be one, right? And that's a big subject. I get it. But I think for me, habit wise, I had to sit down, and this is probably like 4 or 5 years ago. I sat down, I said, okay, well, what's my ideal man, right? So I call it that man. And so I had to kind of dictate, okay, well, when that man walks into a room, when that man talks to his family, when that man gets stressed out, how does he act? Right. And so I had to create like core values. I had to create principles for myself and say, okay, is that man going to be a good partner, a business partner, a good husband, a good father, a good friend? Right. And so my day, I have to ask, okay, I'm stressed out. How would that man handle it? Right. And so that's kind of probably one of the big driving habits that I've been doing for the last probably several years.
I was making some notes there because I feel like, man, I want the listeners to think about what he just said. I thought that was such a great question. Like, what does the ideal man look like, or woman, if you're obviously a woman listening, and then apply that to being a husband, a father, or a business partner, all those things. And if you really sat and wrote that out, that would help you determine some core values for yourself, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it does. And it's funny because like every year I'll go back and look at, okay, well, that man, he believed in, being courageous, being like compassionate, having wisdom or whatever. And then but this year, maybe something's changed, right? It's like, okay, well, I still believe, those, but this now has been changing. So now I have to add this to my list or whatever. And it goes into anything big or small, right? So I think the big thing for me was handling stress. And so I had to ask myself, okay, well, would that man get stressed out at work and then come home and then complain to his wife, right? Well, no, he wouldn't, right? Like he would find a better way to deal with it, right? Maybe through exercise, maybe through journaling, reading, meditating, or whatever the case is that works best for you. But yeah, it's really been like a driver. And then throughout my day, I'd say, okay, well, my core values is what I'm doing right now. Does it align with my core values, right? And does it align with my core values and my goals? And if it doesn't, then why am I doing it, right? So that's kind of...
Yeah, no, that's awesome. If it doesn't align with your core values, then why am I doing it? That's a good question as well. How do you like to give back?
Oh, so I love to volunteer, right? So my wife and I, we're going to start working on volunteering for the Habitat for the Humanity and building houses.
Awesome. Eli, it's been a pleasure to have you on the show and really just think through, how have you scaled this, and grown to this level, 800 to 1,000 units. That doesn't happen by accident, right? There's a lot of purposeful things that have happened very consistently, over a period of time to be able to build a business like that. But to even then think through, okay, this partnership, what happened as you grew? How did you all prepare for further growth, right? It's like continuing to build that foundation of those systems. So the house stands, right? As it supports more weight, no doubt about it. There's a lot of stuff that goes into that. So just grateful for your transparency around that. Even some of the questions around what's the ideal man look like in these scenarios? And man, I hope the listener will think through that as well. And even the question, if it doesn't align with core values, then why are you doing it? But you got to take some time to figure those things out, right? What is that for you? And then write it down. I hope the listener will do that. Eli, how can the listener get in touch with you and learn more about you?
Well, you can reach out to me. My email is eli@investwithamg.com. And then we also have a podcast, the Atlas MF Guys. So you can find it on any big platform.
Thank you for being a loyal listener of the show. Please subscribe and share it with your friends. We want to help you become the passive investor you've always wanted to become, but also the operator you've always wanted to become. We want to be the number one resource for your real estate investing journey. But go to lifebridgecapital.com where you can start investing in real estate today.